It was the night of March 22, 1931, and silence lingered heavily over Lahore Central Jail. Behind those cold iron bars sat a man who had become the heartbeat of rebellion in India. Bhagat Singh, only 23 years old, awaited what would be his final sunrise. The young revolutionary had already accepted his fate. From the moment he was sentenced to death for his role in the killing of a British officer, Bhagat Singh knew that his execution would not be his ending, but his immortal beginning. He had often said, "They can kill me, but my ideas will live forever." And on this last night, those ideas filled the air around him. Inside his cell was a slightly dim lamp, casting flickering shadows. Bhagat Singh spent the evening immersed in his books. A voracious reader until the very end, he was thumbing through the pages of Lenin's work. He had idolized Lenin for his ideals of revolution and societal change. And now, reading about him gave Bhagat Singh a sense of companionship, a bond with another freedom fighter who had challenged the status quo on behalf of his people. Earlier in the evening, jail officials had offered him food, but he refused. His hunger strike months earlier had taught him how to deny himself sustenance for a higher cause. Meanwhile, the city outside remained tense. Word had spread about the scheduled execution, and the streets were alive with whispers of anger, anguish, and resistance. Protesters marched, demanding a stay on the execution. Songs were sung, slogans were shouted, but inside the prison walls, Bhagat Singh held steady. He had no regrets. Finally, as the morning of March 23rd arrived, footsteps echoed sharply in the corridor. Jail officials came to escort him to the gallows. Bhagat Singh stood tall, his face calm. As he walked, he recited from the writings he loved, "Dil se niklegi na mar karbi watan ki ulfat." His love for the nation radiated with every step. In those moments, he had protested not just against the oppressors, but against every form of injustice and inequality. Now, on his final night, food seemed trivial, a distraction from the larger truth he had embraced. As midnight approached, Bhagat Singh leaned back in his chair, reflecting quietly. Flashes of his journey must have danced before his eyes. The boy who grew up listening to stories of sacrifice. The young man who witnessed the Jallianwala Bagh massacre and resolved to join the struggle for India's freedom. The revolutionary who threw harmless bombs in the Central Assembly Hall to make the deaf hear. Each choice he had made led him here, to a dark cell on the brink of immortality. Meanwhile, the city outside remained tense. Word had spread about the scheduled execution, and the streets were alive with whispers of anger, anguish, and resistance. Protesters marched, demanding a stay on the execution. Songs were sung, slogans were shouted, but inside the prison walls, Bhagat Singh held steady. He had no regrets, only resolve. Finally, as the morning of March 23rd arrived, footsteps echoed sharply in the corridor. Jail officials came to escort him to the gallows. Bhagat Singh stood tall, his face calm. As he walked, he recited from the writings he loved, "Dil se niklegi na mar karbi watan ki ulfat." His love for the nation radiated with every step. At the gallows, Bhagat Singh asked for one final act of defiance. He smiled, faced the executioner, and shouted his last words, "Inquilab Zindabad." Long live the revolution. Seconds later, the lever was pulled, and India lost one of its brightest suns. But Bhagat Singh didn't die that day. His sacrifice became eternal, his ideals boundless. The youth of India saw in him the fire of freedom and the courage to act. And generations later, his voice still echoes, calling for justice, courage, and change.